Hello, welcome to week 4, everyone. Please let me know if these video introductions are helpful. I just wanted to give you kind of a guided tour and help you a little bit with what could again be a challenge. I know it's starting out pretty challenging in this class to find data that's potentially scrapable and useful, and I do want to encourage you all, even though you have been able to complete that assignment, it's never too late to switch to a different data set and or pivot on the idea that you have to make it something a little bit more actionable. I like where things are going, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But just going to give you the idea right now is that oftentimes we're given data that's very let's say uninspiring, and we either have to find other resources to make it more interesting and or add more to it. At base, though, we should have something where we feel there's some core value that we can give to our users. So right now, again, everyone's fine with having submitted what they submitted, but if you don't think you can find a core value out of it, feel free to try something else, especially since you've learned new things. But to get to the first layer of information, so we're going to move our data from data to information in one fell swoop, and my choice for doing that is HTML. And this may, again, be very new to many of you. I hope that it's not going to be too challenging because HTML should be human readable. It's just markup, and markup means, in this case, that we're going to use some sort of a word, and we're going to put that around a piece of text or some other item. And what that word does is help a browser interpret that word. And for many, many years, the amount of tags that we had available to us was pretty limited, and people tended to use them pretty badly. So there's a few articles that I'd like you to take a look at. I think it's the information architect's job in this day and age is to come up with good ways to mark up content. So I want you to understand how content is marked up, and I want you to apply those to your data, because I also will let you know that there's no wrong way to mark up data. There's probably some incorrect syntaxes, but that's pretty easy to fix. But what the data means is up to you, and that can come from your explorations in trying to understand what's going on in your data, what values there, what groups are there. So please go ahead and read quite a bit here. There's a little bit of an overview of some different tags. Just as kind of a extra, there's some extra readings. These are all going to kind of help contextualize things for this week. Also this week, I believe there's no real contribution to Mural that's part of the discussion, but everyone seems to be enjoying it, so please use Mural to ask questions, get in touch with me. Our our module discussion for this week is just to talk about this. What does HTML mean? Why is it important? I think that's basically using how HTML5 is used. And I'd like you also to think a little bit, the reason why we're doing this too is that most of our pages are actually not consumed by humans. They're consumed by other entities such as Google. And that's why it's really good to understand how markup works and how clever choices, or even not so clever choices, or just semantic choices are helpful. So if we go to this week's Mural, you're going to see there's a repeat with some explanation of that overview of some of the tags I think are important for you to use. In fact, read up on that, but I think that this gives a good idea of the HTML5 elements that are structural that I'd like you to use. There's a cheat sheet if you have no idea what HTML is. Yeah, there are actually quite a few fields, but it's finite. And if you read them, they're all in English, and they're pretty straightforward. So if you'd like to use any of these and you think it's appropriate to your content, please do, but it's the structural elements, the semantic elements are the main focus for what I'm looking for you to do to mark up your data set. And even so, I'll get into where I'd like you to do this is on a thing called JS Fiddle. JS Fiddle is a kind of a cool place where you can it will autocomplete for you. It'll do nesting for you if you do it in order, which I didn't. But here we go. It's a nice little environment. You do have to sign up for it. I think you might not actually have to sign up for it, but if you do sign up for it, it keeps track of things for you. When you run it, you're able to see some output here, and I wouldn't be terribly concerned with this output. I think it's going to look pretty terrible, but I'm going to show you in a minute what it's going to look like. JS Fiddle is the easiest. There's another called CodePen. That works as well. If you have another one that you like better, or if either of these is hard to use, I just think I think they're pretty straightforward, just like the form thing. But if you have trouble with it, please discuss here. I'm sure we can all help each other out. So the readings are down here. These are really interesting to talk about semantics, display pattern, and so forth. Those are good to discuss. Here's my perfume journey. So I actually took my first data set and I marked it up for you guys. Let me just kind of go into this a little bit. So the head area of HTML, you just have a title. So I'm looking for you to come up from a title for your page. And for example, if that doesn't necessarily have to be the title of your home page, it might be the title of this data set. I think the requirement is to try to mark up 3 records. So let's take a look. In the body, you're going to have a header, and that header has literally what's called a header, header 1. I'm a big fan of having only one heading 1, but that's not a hard and fast rule. You can have several of them, but in terms of hierarchy, I think of the title of the page or the header of the page as being the most important. So everything else to me is maybe a header 2 or below. At this point, there's a navigation element that has a list in it, and this would truly probably be clickable, which is an A tag, but we don't know where anything would link yet, and it's not important, but if we want it to look proper, we can just add it like that. So this nesting thing, you see I've messed it up twice, but if you do it in order, it'll actually do it in a nicer way. And if I run that now, this name will be clickable. So I've actually started to think about how you could sort through my database, my name by family, by price, maybe by this concept called dry down. This is an initial stab. We're going to do much more of this next week. So by the time this assignment's due, hopefully we've got a good idea of how the data is going to be classified in terms of overall navigation. So there's nav 1. Then I've got sections. In that section I've got an article, and this article contains my data set. And in that case there's a heading 2, which is the name of the article. This is a chemical. It's got a description. It's got sort of a weird paragraph thing, which I figured is the P tag. It's kind of just some text. Then there's this feeling of let's do this aside, and that's where we say that aside also has a header which contains top note. This might, maybe even be an H3, just to kind of keep it in level of importance. And when it goes red like that, it's just telling you that you're not nested properly. This isn't an HTML coding assignment. This is more of a what tags are you choosing and why assignment. So if it does get to be a little bit annoying to have to figure out how to nest things properly, just remember the nesting is important. Remember this header is in an aside, and so it's a different header from this header, which is heading the entire page. Or if I used a header in another context. It's really about figuring out how many of these things you need. And a header in this respect also might need more than one element. So maybe it's a top note and then there's sort of a picture of that note. And you'll see that in an example later. So maybe this header is there to group these 2 items, the header name and the picture. Seems reasonable. So all these decisions, to me, are decisions that you guys are going to be making, and this is valuable. I don't think coders can really figure out what semantic things to do unless they knew what the data was supposed to mean. I've also got a little details section, which is kind of weird because the browsers interpret a detail section and they give it this strange sort of drop-down menu, but the browser is interpreting it that way. You can make it do anything you want. I've also got sort of a buy now button, which doesn't do anything, but it kind of gives you the idea that maybe you want to have that next to a purchase item. And last but not least, I put in another picture, which could be a picture of something else. I'm not sure since I just put another picture, but that aside has a picture let's just say actually I was probably better off with just one picture. The only problem with a picture element is that it doesn't do anything. It is not the real HTML for this is image, so it'd be image, and then you would link to an image address. Something like that. I'm not really interested in the image. So in this case, I'm just using picture, and because picture has no display, I did fake a little bit of CSS here, which just gave it a width, a height, and a border around it, and then a couple of tricks like put it to the right-hand side. And that's what this box is. You can see this HTML, or this actual display, is extremely ugly, but believe me, it's really, really good. So this is really a great structure. You can start to design pretty quickly based on this structure, and just with a few rules, it'll all start to look fantastic because the structure is all we're concentrating on. Leave you with just kind of a why do this. I've got an example here of a project that I put together, and I think it's pretty good. So if you look at the code, most of you aren't used to looking at code, but if you look at it, you can see here there's a header. In there, there's another header, H1, and then there's a nav and a background. And so really semantically, it's pretty readable, you know, just saying kind of what's there. And then there's a bunch of sections, and they're kind of cool. They're all labeled 1 through 10. And you'll see in a minute that each then section has a few articles in it. There is a little bit of trickiness here about this style, but don't worry about it. In there, there's just another header, an image, a piece of text, and a couple of links. So the nice thing about this is when you look at it and read it, it just sort of, I hope, gives you the feeling of like, well, this page has a bunch of sections. It doesn't particularly say what this page looks like, which when you see it, I think will be surprising. So we're looking at one of the pages, and we're looking at two of the particular callouts here. These are both blank, but they would normally have things in them. But these are just those parts of the section. But when you go from section to section, this is what happens. So it's deceiving that this structure on its HTML is pretty basic, but what it's actually representing could be really elaborate. At least in this case, you know, I think this particular UI is pretty innovative in terms of being able to zoom in and out and to talk about different areas, kind of having this random display of items within it. So the nice thing from the information architecture point is no matter how it's displayed, as elaborately as this, or whether it was just thrown onto a page, or even if it was just shown without any CSS at all, which I think is another one of these articles here. That's the whole point of this. It should be agnostic. And then last but not least, the world of perfume. There's this new site that I found, which is my new obsession. Let me give you another one. It's all the data in the world. You can imagine here's every smell, and then when you get to an actual perfume review, it categorizes it by its accords. It says what season people think it is best for. It has thousands of users. It goes into every note in the top, middle, and base, including the prominence of voting of what people believe they smell within this particular perfume, and longevity, silage. It's almost more data than you can bear, plus here's all the actual reviews. So now I'm in an opposite world. I used to have no data, now I have too much, but what I haven't been able to do is to figure out how to map these things to ingredients. So got a lot of work to do. Look forward to all of your contributions this week and questions, and hope this HTML doesn't throw you too far off. Hopefully you can see it's about adding structure. That structure really turns your data into information. And then we'll move forward with that, trying to make even more information as we work next week with structures and layouts. Thanks.